Hi everyone, Miss Westwood here. I hope you're all doing really well and are staying safe. So this video is the first of a two-part series I have created about effective practice. Now, because our school lessons only go for 30 minutes, we don't really get to go into the nitty-gritty of practicing. We don't get to talk about the what, the when, the why, or the how. It's pretty much me just begging you to practice and hoping that you understand what I mean. So this first video is going to be talking about the when and the what. So we'll be talking about scheduling your practice sessions and then structuring those sessions to get the most out of it. The second video, which you'll watch after this, hopefully, is how to practice effectively, and then of course why we practice. So let's get started.
Music lessons with Miss Westwood. Yay!
Now, I don't want to reiterate the same thing I say each week, but you should be aiming to practice at least 5 days out of the week for about 10 to 15 minutes each time. The reason I always say this is because studies have proven that for students, particularly in their first few years of playing, benefit more from consistent small practices throughout the week as opposed to a couple really long, say hour-long practices. The reason for this is the process of playing, then going to sleep, then playing, then going to sleep, and playing, and so forth is the really, really important part, because your brain subconsciously, as in when you're not thinking about it, you're still thinking about it in the back of your head, it's processing all of that information from your practice sessions. Therefore, if you have done a bunch of small practices, say, I don't know, 5 days for about 10 to 15 minutes each time, that's chunked that information beautifully so that your brain can digest it, memorize it, learn it, and then do it every single time you play. If you do one really big practice session the day before your lesson, as in a week after you've learned it, not only are you not going to actually remember all that much, but it's going to be so hard for your brain to remember everything from that session that you're not going to be able to do it the next day in your lesson anyway. Okay, now let's think more practically about when you should practice. Simply put, there is no one answer that's going to work for everyone, because we all do different things and we've all got different circumstances. So the best advice I can give you is to sit down with your family and timetable out your practice sessions and find a really good time that's going to work for you and the rest of the family. I've always found that for me personally, I do my best work if I do my practice session as soon as I get home. The reason being is, once I get home, I'm really tired, but if I sit down, I find it so hard to get back up. So if I do it while I'm still standing, I'm all good. If you're the same as me and you have the time to do it in the afternoon, here's what I recommend. So say you get home at 4 o'clock. I would schedule my practice session for 4:15. That gives you time to put your bag down, take your shoes off, drink a water, snack, say hi to the dog, whatever you want to do, and then you grab your instrument out and you start your session. A big thing that a lot of people say to me is they just genuinely forget to practice, and that is a real thing, and I do genuinely believe you. So here's how you fix that. With the times that you've organized with your family, set an alarm. If you have a Fitbit or an iPad or a phone, set an alarm for when your practice session is going to start. That way, if you do forget, your technology reminds you. If you're one of those people that maybe doesn't really like practice, or it might be just you love practicing, but then you might just have a day where it's like a bad day and you just don't feel like doing it, I still highly recommend you push through it, because you'll feel better for it, because you've accomplished something, and the next day's practice is going to be so much better. If you find that doing that 10-15 minutes is a really hard push, here's what I recommend you do. You set a timer. So the timer starts and from your very first note, and then as soon as it goes off, you get to choose how you finish. So within that 10-15 minutes, you might decide, oh, I'm actually starting to feel a bit better about myself, I'm going to finish the rest of the song. Or you might be like, oh, yeah, okay, cool, I'm done, but I'll finish this bar, I'll finish this line. You might have been really, really struggling for that 10-15 minutes, and the timer goes off and you stop your note and you're like, I'm done. That's fine too, because you've still done your time, you can still mark it off in your homework sheet, and you can still be proud of your job. Alrighty, so we've talked about when to practice. Now let's talk about how to structure it, so what your practice session should look like. Now, depending on the person, you're going to find different ways of practice that are going to work best for you. But the basic structure that I use is what I call the funnel technique, where you start broad, get specific, and then you go back to being broad. And this works in 5 simple parts. Step 1 is your warm-up. Now, the better the warm-up, the better the practice session. So you want to get prepared physically and mentally for it, even if it is only going to be a short one. A good way you can warm up is by playing some slow scales or a slow, pretty song that you like. For brass players, buzzing. If you start your practice session looking at the hardest thing in your music, 1, your instrument's not warm. 2, you're physically not ready, and 3, that combination is going to make you sound not very good, and then you're going to feel bad about yourself, and that's your practice session starting on a really, really, really negative note. So you want to start positive, stay calm, warm up naturally, and then get into your session. Number 2, the playthrough. So you're going to be playing through your whole song. So you're going to pick your first song, and then you play through the whole thing. As you play through, you use a pencil, not a pen. Please do not use pen. Use a pencil to just circle or put a star next to any parts that you found really difficult. Now this can be a single note or a couple of beats or a bar or even just a whole section where you're like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. That's okay. Mark it in pencil and then you'll come back to it. Step 3 is spot practicing. Now this is where you look at those pencil marks in isolation. If I have something tricky, I will stop, I'll sing it through, and then I'll clap it through, and then I'll sing in fingers, exactly what we do in lessons, and I do it slowly. Step 4 is the integrating. So now that you've done your spot practicing, you need to practice actually being able to play that small part within the context of your song. So you might get your one bar that you struggle with. So you get the bar right, and then you go, okay, let's see if I can move into it. So you'll play the bar before it happens, and then that bar. Once you've got that, you do the bar before, that bar, and then the bar after. And then you go 2 before, 1 after, 2 before, 2 after, and like that. Then once you feel comfortable running into that bar and running out of it, okay, so sewing it in, then you do step number 4, final part, which is where you play the whole song again, if you have time. Number 5 is really important, it's the warm down. So just like how you stretch before you go for a run, you stretch after as well so that you can relax your muscles. Alright, it's a really nice, positive, calming way to end a practice session, especially if you've gotten a little bit frustrated in it, okay? So doing some pedal notes for brass, which is those really low notes for all instruments, and then again just stretches. Now obviously this is not the only way to practice, and there are so many ways you can do it, but it is a really good structure so that you can just take that and then tweak it to make it work for you. Something you might want to even add on to it is having a checklist. So you can either make your checklist at the end of your practice session or at the beginning of it, and you can just highlight a few things that you really want to look at. Having that checklist is going to help you keep on track so that you don't kind of waste time playing the stuff that you're already really good at. Alright, that's all from me. I hope this video was useful and not too boring for you. So keep up the practice, keep working hard, be kind to your parents, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Mwah.